Hello and welcome to our lesson on the TI-84 Plus CE student course. In this video we are focusing on the calculator home screen and in particular settings and editing calculations. Some of the things that we're going to look at are the mode settings, including normal, scientific and engineering mode, float, maths print versus classic and different fraction types. This will link nicely with decimals, how to use copy and paste and the difference with answer, and using the navigation keys with insert and delete. Across the top it will tell you the general mode settings that you have for your calculator. The only one that really you would question here is this one here, MP, and that stands for maths print, and they come up in here as well. We're going to look at a few of these, and the first one we're going to look at is normal, scientific and engineering mode and the difference between them. We can see here on the TI-84 Plus CE guidebook the difference between normal, scientific and engineering mode, and when we set those on our calculators. I think engineering is quite interesting that it will give it to us as times 10 to the power of a multiple of 3. Notice that the calculator uses E, but we would write down times 10 in our answers in any calculations because that's the correct mathematical speak, and I'll show you that on the calculator now. So the E, or times 10 to the power of, is above the comma, not to get confused with the exponential button here, and equally over here, which is e to the power of 1. So if we had 3, can you guess what that is? Yep, you're right. It's 3 with 7 zeros, or 30 million. We also, therefore, in those modes, can come down to float. And float will give us so many different decimal places. So if I go to, say, 5, not only now do I see that happening up here on my header of the calculator screen, but if I typed in pi, then it would give me pi to 5 decimal places. It will float the number of decimal places that you want, which you may find quite useful. And it doesn't matter even if I times it by, say, a negative number, it will still hold it to 5 decimal places. Other things in mode that you may want to look at is maths print versus classic. Really, you would keep everything in maths print mode. That allows you to type in fractions using the fraction button here. We can see that above the X button. Even if you don't have that icon, it will still work for you, and we can get it as a fraction. Whereas if we change that mode to classic, then we will lose that functionality of this nice fraction opportunities. So really, most of the time you're going to keep it in maths print. I'm just going to turn the float back as well. And the last thing, which is pretty self-explanatory, is the fractions, whether you want them as top-heavy fractions or mixed fractions. Whether that mode is important to you sort of doesn't really matter too much, because we can still put top-heavy fractions in, like this here, which will leave it as a top-heavy fraction unless we change that mode setting here. And then we can always convert it in F1, convert it to a mixed fraction anyway. So that's probably not so important to worry about for now. Notice that if we also take that fraction, times it by a decimal, it will hold a decimal form, unless, again, we want to convert it to a fraction and then put it into fraction form. So if we work in fraction form, then it will keep it in fraction form. But if we work with a blend of fractions and decimals, then it will leave it in decimal form. You'll have seen a few times that I've gone up and copied values. I can either copy the answer that I get given, or I can copy a calculation. Let's, for example, say this here. That's going to do the answer here times 0.2. It's important to realize that when we go up and copy something, let's take pi, for example, and this is true also for when we use angles, especially in radians. When we go up to copy, if we go up and copy this, it actually cuts the number off here and can cause rounding error. So therefore, it's much better not to copy the answer, but actually to copy the question that you use, which would be this one here, or to use the answer button. Both of those will avoid any rounding error occurring. And finally, you can use the insert and delete key rather than always the clear key. Let me give an example of what I mean by that. Let's say we had this calculation happening. Then I can actually go up and I can copy that line. I can go into it and on top of it change something. Let's change that to a plus. I can go on top and say get rid of that 9 by pressing delete, and I can go over and let's say I wanted to add a number between the 1 and the 5. I can go second ints for insert, and I can add some numbers into there if I wanted to. So just those are really nice little features, how you can write over the top of the position you're in, or you can delete any values that you want, or any numbers, the digits that you'd like, and you can also insert using this function here. So hopefully you found that useful, and thanks for watching.